I'm Bizarro Jim with extensive gambling debts.
And I'm David Pumpkins.
And this is Off the Bench. We are starting today with a little bit of NBA basketball. Mavs last night are now 1-7. We have been unbelievably disappointed. The Dennis Smith experiment so far has not gone well.
No, I mean, look, we've got to expect, especially from a rookie point guard, that he's going to have challenges early on.
But this is ridiculous.
This is getting to be bad. And, we've seen what other rookies have been doing. Luckily, we knew what Lonzo Ball was going to do, but we thought Markelle Fultz was going to be the top of this class. He's now injured. He's out. So, look, it could be worse. We could have Fultz instead of Dennis Smith Jr. At least our point guard right now is healthy somewhat.
Yeah.
And he's playing. And so I'm thankful for that as we come up on Halloween Eve here. But this isn't exactly what we expected.
And this is and the Mavs seem to be playing a trick on us when it comes to, or at least it feels like a trick this year coming up on Halloween, and that's with Rick Carlisle. I am really confused on the lineouts he's throwing out, the way he's starting to play. I mean, he's allowing a ton of ISO. He's allowing someone like Wesley Matthews to be able to go and play almost point shooting guard or whatever position he plays. Bringing the ball up the court. He had 5 turnovers yesterday. Yeah. 5.
Yeah.
He doesn't do a good job penetrating. When he does, he tries to throw the ball up almost as a hope and a prayer, and most of the time he either gets swat or goes out of bounds or he makes a bad pass out. I don't know if we should continue to allow, or at least to put up with the fact that Rick Carlisle seems to not know what to do with this team.
Yeah, I think he's trying a lot of different things right now because the lineup that he wanted to start the season with did not work at all in the beginning. They got out-rebounded substantially in the first 2-3 games. They didn't get out-rebounded last night, but the biggest problem was that they can't hold on to the ball. They turned the ball over 24 times. 16 of those were steals by the Utah Jazz. And now, the Utah Jazz are a good defensive team. So, they're going to get turnovers, but 24 turnovers is unacceptable, and there's no way you're ever going to win a game, no matter how well you shoot, if you turn over the ball that many times.
And especially when you've got a center like Gobert defending the paint. Switching over to the other side with Noel, this is looking better and better, the fact that they did not sign Noel in the offseason because
a long-term deal, yeah.
Because he is not looking good this season so far. He didn't start off the bat. Now he is starting, and he's looking less than pedestrian when it comes against normal
It actually looked
centers.
like when he was coming off the bench, he had more energy, more desire coming off the bench and coming into the games and playing well than now that he's starting.
I don't even think it's the desire. I think the fact that he can't physically meet up with 7-foot big men that weigh 240, 250 pounds or more. And that's the average center. You've got Adams, you've got Boogie, you've got Anthony Davis, you've got all these guys that are powerful front forwards. Hell, even the Greek Freak's going to be able to push Noel around a little bit. He doesn't have the physical stature to be able to do it, and that's why everybody was talking about how he has to put on weight. Here's the case in point. They had to take him out of the game 4 minutes in, less than 4 minutes in, and put Powell in to be able to go against Gobert. It was ridiculous. And then it turned into some sort of round, around one of those doors that rotate around. I forgot what it's called.
Rotating door.
Rotating door when it comes to the lineup at center. I mean, I felt like I was watching hockey. Every 3-4 minutes they were
shift.
They would put in Noel, then they'd put in Powell, then they'd put in Mejri, and then Dirk. And to be honest, the best person against him was Dirk for some reason. He did the best, and I don't know if it's because they're scared he's going to slap him, but
maybe it's that old wise, sly skill that Dirk has that these other guys don't.
I think right now we are the bottom of the West.
Man, we're bottom of the NBA. I looked at the power rankings the other day, and they had us at 23. I couldn't believe we were that high. I thought we would be, bottom 3, bottom 4, because right now we're the bottom of the West. We couldn't beat Atlanta and Sacramento. Those teams only have 1 win each, and both of those wins are against us.
And
we're losing against the other worst teams in the NBA. How can we consider ourselves even above, the absolute bottom of the
And
NBA
this is,
right now.
the first time we've seen some real burn from Devin Harris this season because of the tragic accident that
With his brother.
Yeah, with his brother. But it has been blatantly obvious so far how much this offense has missed Devin Harris. He's the only point guard other than maybe JJ that is able to penetrate the lane and know what to do once he's penetrated the lane. He's either doing good body up layups or he's penetrating enough to be able to give an outlet pass to someone who's either at the 3 or open at the 2
And
to be able to shoot.
His defense is going to be a lot better than JJ's. I love JJ for what he does, but defense is not what JJ does. Devin Harris is a much better defensive player than JJ, and that's not saying a ton. I think you expect Dennis Smith Jr. to be by far the best defensive point guard on this team, but he isn't right now. It's really Devin Harris, and so you get Devin Harris in there. He does know how to penetrate. JJ knows how to penetrate, but on the defensive side of the court, he's their best option at point guard right now. They can't guard anybody.
All right, let's break down this game. And this is the biggest issue overall. Dirk was our best player.
Yeah.
At 20 years. At 20 years in this league, 40 years old, he was the best player. In 24 minutes, he had 18 points. If we can get 18 out of 24 from Dirk for the season, that's unbelievable. He won't be an all-star, but he'll be dang close.
Well, that's almost 6 man if he was coming off the bench.
Yeah, 4 for 5 from the 3-point land. And then Dennis Smith Jr., okay, brace yourself. 2 points. 2 points, 17% shooting from the field.
That doesn't make David Pumpkins happy.
No, it does not. And 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 4 turnovers.
Yeah, that's not nearly good enough. And thank goodness we still have Devin Harris, even though I think this is probably his last year. We've got to have the support at point guard because Dennis Smith Jr. is going to be up and down. And when he's down, clearly, it's bad. 17% from the floor is not going to do it. He needs to be able to score at will near the basket and be a decent enough 3-point shooter so that he can, create space to get to the basket. Otherwise, he really is going to have a problem. He's got to turn it. The shooting's got to get better from this whole team.
Yep, and let's not take into account that, or we haven't taken into account that this Jazz team is a good defensive team.
8 blocks. 6 of them from Gobert. The guy's a friggin' monster around the basket. And this team is one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, especially now that we're talking about an NBA where teams are averaging 110, 120 points a game. This is an NBA that's opened up scoring. And Utah is one of the only teams that can keep teams under 100 points.
So is this team, as the Mavericks, looking forward to this 2017 season, is it scaring David Pumpkins?
Scares David Pumpkins a lot. And David Pumpkins is usually the one doing the scaring.
And David Pumpkins is now talking in the third person, David Pumpkins.
David Pumpkins always talks in the third person.
And when
you know David Pumpkins, then yes.
So what do we have coming up next? We talked a little bit of NBA. What do we have coming up next?
We've got World Series. We've got Jose Ortiz going to be calling in here. We're going to talk about where we are. We're back to 3-2. Houston has returned the balance to the World Series. We're going back to LA. LA has 2 home games. They've got to win both. Houston only has to get 1, but that's the way the World Series was set up. Mm-hmm. It's been phenomenally exciting, and Jose Ortiz is going to give his prediction on what he thinks is going to happen in LA.
When we come back, we talk a little bit of NFL, and then we dive right into into Jose Ortiz, go over a little bit of World Series, and then we have Matt Wixon.
Yeah, talking FISD football, and 2 teams this week. This is the big week.
Bizarro Jim did not study his notes for today. That's why he's fumbling and stumbling, because I feel the mob coming behind me.
I know. They almost got your eye.
They almost got my eye. But I got away.
Next.
We're so excited to invite you to our Stacy Furniture Anniversary Sale.
Save today on Stacy's outstanding selection, up to 50% off select items throughout the store.
Now's the time to buy that new bedroom, living room, or dining room suit. You can't beat these prices anywhere.
Name brands like Bernhard, Hooker, Universal, and Sherrill, all on sale today.
It's Stacy's Anniversary Sale. Only happens once a year.
Shop Stacy's today or visit us online at stacyfurniture.com.
Remember, when you're shopping at Stacy's, you're shopping with family.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver. the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
We're going to have to push off Monday Night Football a little bit because there's a lot of breaking news today. Zeke Elliott last night decided, or the courts decided he is suspended.
Yes.
He has 24 hours to appeal. And then we've got a lot of big trades happening right now in the NFL. The trade deadline is coming to an end today at 4 p.m. Eastern. With that said, let's dive into Ezekiel Elliott. I think this is the best thing. Whether they know it or not, this is the best thing for the Cowboys.
Yeah, this season isn't going to get easier. They're already so far behind Philadelphia, and Philadelphia looks like they're the best team in the NFC, if not all of the NFL. It's going to be difficult for them to catch the Eagles. It's going to be difficult for them to get into the playoffs and make a run, I think, with the team as it currently exists. He was going to serve the suspension at some point.
Yeah, and we were talking about how this season maybe doesn't seem completely out of reach, but is getting there.
Yeah.
They did have a good last two games they've won, but before that they went 0 a lot.
Yeah.
But let's break it down. He's not having the greatest season of his life. He does seem slow. He does seem distracted. I think it's with the Eagles and everything that's going on in the East, I think they're going to have a really hard time competing. When they get to the playoffs, I do not think this team is prepared yet to make a drive to the Super Bowl or to the championship game at least. You got to break down the fact that get him his suspensions now. I know he doesn't want it. I know he thinks he's innocent, or he wasn't proven by law he was not guilty, but the NFL doesn't need to go by law.
Yeah.
It's about the shield.
Yeah, they are protecting their brand.
And the CBA, the players in the CBA gave Roger Goodell the ability to do whatever he wanted when it comes to discipline. So I'm sorry, guys, but courts aren't going to help you there.
And I just wonder if he does get this stay, if it not only hurts this year, but then if he
if he's able to appeal it.
So there's one more step that he can take that would keep him playing this year. They could file for a stay with the U.S. Court of Appeals, Second Circuit, and that would allow him to play out the rest of the year, and then he would serve it next year. The reason they would do that is because it's his livelihood, and so they can make the determination whether he deserves to continue playing this year or not. It's unlikely. The percentages every time they go back to appeal these decisions, the likelihood of them getting a good result is less and less.
And why ruin 2 seasons? If he needs to serve it out, not just for his well-being, but for the well-being of the Cowboys. They're already mentally out of this season.
Yeah.
I mean, they played 2 mediocre teams, and that's why they won. The 49ers are horrible. And the Redskins have been struggling the last couple weeks, so they got 2 victories. And it was a mud-soaked game, so that sort of helped them with their running game.
Run game, yeah.
But if you look at it, if he appeals and wins, he's going to serve it next year. That's going to destroy half the season.
Yeah.
And then it's going to take 2, 3, 4 weeks to get back into the groove, because when you're suspended, you don't get to practice, you don't get to talk to the coaches, you don't get to train.
You have to do everything on your own. You can't use anything in the facility.
And you can't communicate with anybody on the team. So that means when he comes back, he's going to have to get back into the groove. And, he's going to have to get back into shape, because at the end of training camp...
I'm sorry, but knowing Zeke, what he does during those weeks when he's not allowed to be on the Cowboys campus, I mean, man, he needs somebody with him at all times to make sure he's not just out.
Sounds like a Pac-Man Jones situation.
I mean, a little bit is. That the guy clearly has a issue with going out all the time. And
so is he... Here's something I don't know if anybody has said.
Out late.
Is he a more talented Johnny Manziel? Where he has a problem. He has a problem. He has openly said he's gone into recreational drugs. He's done a lot of drinking. He likes partying.
Yeah.
And so what everybody is, and I think this is why the Cowboys are fighting so hard to keep him in, is they fear that if all of a sudden he has the freedom and with nobody checking up on him because the team can't interact with him,
right,
that he's going to go, maybe he'll be good for a week or 2 weeks, but then he's going to start going to parties.
6 weeks is a long time. That's a long time.
He's going to start getting into trouble off the field, and then if he does get trouble off the field, that suspension gets longer.
Yes.
So I think it's a catch-22 for Zeke, but I hate to say it.
They're better off doing it now.
Yes.
Let him finish out the season. If he gets an extra suspension, you miss only 2 games at the beginning of next year, and then, you're fine. Okay, he's still going to be able to do what he does on the field. Maybe it rests his legs a little bit.
Yes, I think that's what my point I was going to be. He looks slow. He looks sluggish this year anyway. Maybe he was overworked a bit last year. He needs some time to rejuvenate those legs. And you never know.
He takes the time to actually do that.
You never know. If the Cowboys go on a run and a tear, he might be back for them.
Well, another running back who looks like he could be rejuvenated, Ajayi, Frisco alum, is now going to be with the Eagles. He was just traded for a 4th-round pick from the Miami Dolphins.
That just, you know what that does? That takes the NFC East a little bit further out of reach for the Cowboys and the Redskins and the Giants.
What did the Eagles do? Because they've been running in 2 or 3 different running backs because Darren Sproles has been out. And Darren Sproles was a huge offensive weapon for them.
He was their
jack of all trades.
Yeah, jack of all trades. He was their Swiss Army knife. He could catch it. He could run it. He could
special teams. Yeah.
Yeah, he was basically their he was their Brian Westbrook.
Yeah.
Brian, the Eagles have always seemed to have had that player who could do everything.
Yeah.
And right now, like you said, with Sproles hurt, they needed to bring in someone to actually rejuvenate the running game because as great as Blunt is on the short yardage and maybe getting you 5, 6, 7 yards on a run,
he's not going to last a whole season the way he's been playing. I think it's a Marshawn Lynch sort of deal, right? I mean, he can be a brutal force for 40, 50 yards a game for 10, 11 carries. But if you want a guy who can get you 20, 25 carries a game and
because he's not just running
70 to 100 yards, he's not that guy.
Yeah.
Ajayi can be that guy behind a good offensive line. I think there's a great opportunity for him.
You know who could have been that guy and who was that guy? McCoy. They let McCoy go. 2, 3, 4 seasons ago, however long it was.
Money, money, money.
Yeah. I think he's been, that was a massive mistake on their part because he was a feature back.
Yeah.
He was a Darren Sproles wrapped up with an Adrian Peterson when it comes to the amount of carry, or not Adrian Peterson, maybe Bell.
Yeah.
Le'Veon Bell / Darren Sproles. He was that for them. And they let him go, which I understand, their financial situations that maybe are out of control for teams because they can't spend that much money. But I think right now as much as we were not expecting much out of a head coach who was an offensive coordinator for like 1 or 2 years and a quarterback's coach before that, with such inexperience, I think Peterson Doug Peterson has done an amazing job with this team.
We got to move on. 2 more trades. Marcell Dareus goes to the Jaguars for a 7th-round pick.
That scares the heck out of me because their defense is good already.
Yeah, it just adds their defense now. He's had off-the-field issues, and the Bills were willing to let go. And clearly, he's not in their plans moving forward. He didn't play on Sunday, and the Bills still won by a ton. So the Bills aren't worried about losing him. Clearly, 7th-round pick, that's basically nothing. They could have taken a little bit of cash. Now, also,
could be a Tom Brady.
The biggest trade that we saw was Garopollo going to San Francisco.
For a high 2nd-round pick.
Brett Thard, the former Iowa quarterback, has not looked great recently. And I'm thinking after the last couple of blowouts, they are looking for stability. They're looking to win it. The coach is looking to save his job.
Well, what's really funny is that Brian Hoyer was let go from 49ers. And there's a lot of people talking that New England could bring Brian Hoyer in because he was a backup to Tom Brady for 2-3 years many moons ago. But they could bring him back in to hold that backup position at least somewhat stable.
That would be a weird turn of circumstances.
Yeah, because you're getting rid of a really good quarterback and bringing in a mediocre quarterback when it comes to Garoppolo. But this was something that the Patriots had to do because Garoppolo is going to demand, and I don't mean him, I meant the market is going to demand that Garoppolo get paid. He's they're going to give him starting quarterback money.
Yeah.
And while Tom Brady's still with the Patriots, they're not going to pay a backup starter money to not play.
No.
And so they had to get something for him this year, and they tried to really gin up the value of Garoppolo in the offseason. They were demanding a 1st and 2nd-round pick. And now they're just going to have to settle for a 2nd-round pick because I think they were sort of...
And honestly, the 2nd-round pick from the 49ers is not a bad pick. It's going to be a fine pick. We got to go. Broncos and Chiefs, Monday Night Football. I was pretty much dead on with this game in my prediction. Very close in the score, ended up 29 to 20. I mean, a good game, but the quarterbacks did not play particularly well. There were quite a few interceptions. Alex Smith was able to throw the ball down the field, but they couldn't put the ball in the end zone nearly as many times as I think they expect to. But Denver's defense, they didn't show up like I thought they might. I thought they had a chance to really show how good they were, and Kelsey just kind of ran rampant on.
You know, we've had this conversation before. Kelsey is the new Rob Gronkowski. I mean, he's not as physical. He's probably not going to get as many touchdowns as Rob did in his prime, but he's that physical freak who can run down the field. He can destroy cornerbacks with speed, but he can also out physical. He outruns linebackers. Safeties aren't able to cover him because of his ability to go up body and put a body between them and the ball. He's a mismatch across the board. And to be honest, maybe Rob Gronkowski is a little bit of a stretch. He's a Jimmy Graham when Jimmy Graham was the deal in New Orleans with the Saints. I really believe that they need to lean on Kelsey more. He is able to handle the load, especially if
Hunt can't get off, and he couldn't do anything last night. The Broncos did get the running game going, but like I said, it wasn't enough. Simeon really is killing them right now. He's got to be better if they expect to win games, and he may not be there next week. This may be Osweiler next week. I still don't think Paxton Lynch is ready. It's going to be crazy.
How many years does Paxton Lynch need?
Too many.
All right. Next, we are going to be talking to our MLB Call-in of the day,
Jose Ortiz. We're going to be talking World Series Game 6 coming up. Huge game. The Astros can finish it off, or the Dodgers can stay alive. Next.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made her college years happen. Opening that education savings account when she was little. Spearheading a campus tour. And another, and another, and another, and another. Bam! Deciphering financial aid. She was like, what? But now she's like, you aced planning for college. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Wasn't available. I think the mob got to him.
They knew
I was glad that you got away.
Yeah, I knew I was going to talk to him.
What details did he have about you that got him in so much trouble?
Bank accounts, booking notes.
Well, tonight we got the biggest matchup. Rich Hill going against Verlander. Remember, we talked about this the other day. We knew this game was going to be so important for the Astros to get to win it, because they're getting to their guy who could go 9 innings, not have to rely on a bullpen that has been totally decimated during this postseason. I mean, every time they go to their bullpen, it's like, I wonder how many runs they're going to give up this time.
And I wonder how much money they're going to be paying these two Astro pitchers, because they are doing double duty. When everybody else in the league is pitching 5-6 innings, they're pitching 9. They're the ones that are having to make up for the fact that their bullpen is horrible. Because as they go forward, these bullpens, as you said, are a major weakness. You know, this ultimate game, this 5.5 hour, what was it?
Game 5.
Yeah, game 13 inning monster. The reason why it was a monster is because the bullpens let hit after hit after hit, home run after home run, and they would go on runs. They would be up 3 points or 3 runs, and all of a sudden they would switch on them because the pitchers could not hold anybody back.
Yeah, and the starting pitching. This is looking at game 1 and how quick that game went. Less than 2.5 hours.
Yes.
With Keuchel and Kershaw, and everybody's like, okay, we're going to get another one of these beautiful short games that we can watch, and it won't even be 10 o'clock by the time we have to turn our TVs off here. Not so much.
But the thing is that game was worth every moment.
Yes.
Even though you were exhausted, it was worth every moment because there was not a dull period or a dull inning in that game.
Well, you see why we were almost both asleep yesterday when we were doing the show, because we were up until 2 a.m. trying to figure out who was going to win this game as it kept going back and forth. Now, Game 6, Verlander, can he go 8 or 9 innings to finish this thing off for the Astros? He only gave up 2 hits in the last game with 3 runs, and both the hits were home runs. Can the Dodgers get to him? I think it's going to be a challenge. 2 hits isn't going to do it in this game.
No, 2 hits
I don't think Rich Hill's going to go 8 or 9 innings. They're going to have to go to their bullpen, which before the series began, we thought, well, if the Dodgers get to their bullpen, it's game over.
Yes.
Now, it's as big a question with the Dodgers bullpen as it is with the Astros bullpen.
Because now there's sort of an equalizing force. The Dodgers don't seem to have any of their pitchers be able to go past 6-7 innings. And the Astros have 2 pitchers who are willing to do it.
Yeah.
That's the real issue, is your team, and you've had this conversation before, and you've been very passionate about it, their stars for the Astros are like, give me the ball, I will finish this.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers don't seem to have that. Don't get me wrong, their players are coming out and they're playing when they need to play and they're playing hard when they need to play, but it doesn't seem like they're going, if you and I were playing, or the Astros, if the coach or the manager came out and said, give me the ball, no, I'm finishing this game.
And I think A.J. Hinch is giving knowing that his bullpen's a disaster, I think he's giving a lot more ability to his starters to finish games, whether they're struggling midway or not. Whereas Dave Roberts really just goes, well, my bullpen's been amazing, so I'm just going to keep going to him. And he's like, well, that was just a hiccup. I'll go back to him next time. Oh, that was just another hiccup. I'll go back to him again.
He doesn't know how to handle the team other than that.
Keep going back to them. Right now, they're exhausted. Jensen's fastball looks like a piece of meat being thrown. It looks like a volleyball. Every time he throws it, even though he's throwing 95 miles an hour, there's no movement on it. It's right down the middle of the plate. And the Astros hitters are demolishing it. They're a great fastball.
And the interesting part is that Dallas and Hugh Darvish have serious problems right now, and it is out of their control.
Yeah.
The ball that they're using they did something to it. They put either decorative design or they wanted to do something to make the ball special for the World Series. And they said it's slick. So Hugh Darvish and Dallas have a hard time. Yeah, having a hard time throwing these sliders.
Yeah.
Their sliders are starting to straighten out, and they're not accurate with them because that grip that they're usually known for, that they usually have on that ball, is gone.
Yeah.
And they said in the MLB, instead of just going, okay, well we'll do old balls, like normal balls for this. They're like, you know what?
This is pretty typical, though.
But they go, all we did was put a new logo on it. That's all, and it's in gold because it's the World Series. Who cares? If it's ruining the product and these pitchers are complaining, go back to the old ball.
Yeah. And I think, look, it's the same thing as like the NBA doing the advertisements on the jersey, right? They're trying to make more money off of selling more product. But in the end, does it help the game?
Actually, it was more like, you remember...
Oh, the sleeve jerseys that the players all hated, that they were tearing up.
Remember 4 or 5 years ago, the NBA switched the balls on them.
Yeah, that's true too.
They switched the balls. They didn't tell anybody.
They hated things. Oh my God! I remember it was after I think it was after the Olympics, and in the Olympics
they did international ball,
and the NBA was like, "Hey, that's a cool idea. Let's do that." And the NBA
didn't
players
tell
were like,
anybody.
This thing is terrible. Nobody can grip it. Everybody's just throwing it all over the place.
It's the same situation, and the NBA is smart enough to go, okay, we'll switch back to the old ball.
Yeah.
The Major League Baseball didn't seem, at least at the time, to really care that much.
Yeah.
They're like, our numbers are up. 19 million people watched that.
More people watched the World Series Game 5 than they watched Sunday Night Football. I can't remember the last time that happened.
And you know what's really scary? And if we're talking...
That's incredible considered what we've talked about before with baseball.
So World Series got like a 14.5.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Guess what the Mavs...
For baseball,
and
that's
I'm just
unbelievable.
Saying, guess what the Mavs got?
A 3.4.
0.4.
In here or nationally?
Here. And you know what the sad part is? Because they haven't played any national games yet.
Yeah.
The sad part is a rerun of Law and Order Special Victims Units got a higher rating than the Mavs game. So what is happening is you're seeing all these spectrums, and if people really pay attention.
This time of year is hard though, because remember I was talking about I wanted like 3 pairs of eyes so I could watch everything that was going on Sunday.
But see, people got to realize right now it's like the Los Angeles market when it comes to sports right now on TV. You've got football, you've got basketball, you've got
baseball,
you've got hockey, you've got soccer. Then you've got all the fall shows just came out.
Yep.
You know, NCIS, Lucifer, all these different.
If you like watching Premiership Rugby, that's on also. No?
Okay.
No. Oh,
I'm David Pumpkins.
I'm David Pumpkins.
But I really think that Major League Baseball, if they know what's good for them, they're going to try to replicate by changing something in the game.
The only way I could see them replicating what
is going on right
World
now
Series is to shrink the league. Because I think what you're seeing is 2 teams with a lot of talent and a lot of personalities playing against each other. If they could shrink the league, then you would get more talent on more teams. You wouldn't have Oakland A's. You wouldn't have the Kansas City Royals, who would be who are challenged typically year in year out.
Challenge.
Well, I mean, the Kansas City Royals had a good run, but you knew after that was over, they weren't going to get back. There's just the market doesn't hold up to what New York and Dallas and LA and Chicago, those markets can do. It just wasn't going to hold up. Miami, their market, nobody goes to their games. And they've struggled forever. Tampa Bay, terrible market. So you see a lot of markets that are really struggling. Their baseball teams are not any good generally. They've got players. As soon as they get players, they trade them because they don't want to pay them. So you have your talent is all over the place. And the Dodgers and the Astros have been the best at coagulating talent on their team.
Coagulating?
And you see what happens.
Coagulating like my scars?
Yes. And you see what happens when 2 very good teams come together and play against each other. This is what baseball should be.
All right. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit of Big 12 expansion, and then it's Matt Wixon next.
Marie, you have prediabetes.
Prediabetes? I don't have time to eat right or exercise. I'm a busy mom.
Oh, you're a busy mom.
Yeah.
This is great news. Busy moms never get prediabetes.
Wait, what?
Let me just... Yeah, this is all the people at risk for prediabetes, and way over here, busy moms. No?
So we talked about the Big 12 and the challenges they have right now. We've been talking about it all.
Outside being the greatest conference in the world.
Right, not so much. In fact, remember the early 2010s or teens or whatever we want to call them, they were looking at potentially folding because of the Longhorn network deal that Texas had with ESPN. And then which
ended up being a horrible decision on ESPN's part.
A&M getting taken by the SEC, with Nebraska and Colorado going to the Big Ten. There were and Missouri going. So Missouri going to the SEC. There were big concerns about what was going to happen to the future of the Big 12. They're not the Big 12 anymore. It's only 10 teams. Can they expand? And if they can, should they? Because when we look at some of the teams that they could expand to, it's not very promising. They've expanded to West Virginia. So do you look at a Cincinnati? I think Cincinnati would be number 1 on my list. And that's not saying a lot, because you look around and, the Pac-12 is looking to expand. They're not going to let us steal Arizona.
Why would anybody let the Pac-12 expand? They have been outside of a couple times when Oregon...
They're trying to steal teams away from the Mountain West.
But the problem is that division is horrible. Why would teams want to go to a division where automatically they are deemed a lesser team being in the Pac-12?
They may, because it's a better shot to get into the college football playoff picture.
But you have to be ranked because of the conference you're in, right? So you look at right now, the SEC and the Big Ten automatically get boosted numbers when it comes to the rankings because of the conference that they're in. you get Michigan, you get all those guys in the top 10, even though they might, I promise you next year, Michigan will be in the top 10.
Yeah.
Penn State will be in the top 10.
Ohio
State. Notre Dame, even though they're, and then on the SEC, and the ACC, Clemson, and then Auburn most likely. You'll probably get a Florida. You'll probably get obviously Alabama. Georgia. You'll get all these teams because not only are they good.
You've named 10 teams already. Yeah. We've only looked at 2 conferences.
But what I'm saying is all these numbers, whether they're in the top 10 or not, they will be boosted because they're in the SEC and they're in the Big 10.
They're in the ACC.
Yeah, Big 12 also gets a little bit of a boost. Pac-12 does not.
Yeah, but here's the problem: is the Pac-12 has money. The Big 12,
like California money?
No. They have money because of their TV deals, and the Big 12 is having issues because of the Longhorn Network deal. The UT gets tons of money, but the rest of the Big 12 doesn't, and the rest of the Big 12 is pissed because they're not getting the money that the Longhorns are getting. But looking at how would they expand. I don't know that they're going to expand. A lot of people think that actually when the next round of expansion comes around, it's actually going to be at the Big 12's expense. That the Pac-12 or the SEC will come in and snag somebody. SEC looking at OU or TCU, and the Pac-12 coming in and trying to steal a Tech. And maybe
no one's going to leave that right now. SEC. I mean, let's look at the top 2 dogs. Right? You got Texas. You got Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Those 2 aren't leaving. They're the number 1 and 2 schools in the conference. They know for a fact that every year they are going to be the top.
The problem is that this conference may not be around. A lot of people think this conference will fold. They've been talking about the death throes for a while.
Those are the same people that also thought that A&M going to the SEC was a good idea. Nebraska going to the Big Ten was a good idea. And those 2 teams
we don't know yet.
have been permanent residents on the struggle bus when they're in there.
But we're not talking about them going to a conference and being able to win in those conferences. We're talking about teams leaving the Big 12 and going to other conferences because they can make money in those other conferences. It's all about following the mighty dollar, and the Big 12 is not producing. UT, I mean, really, the best situation for UT
deal is going to fade out here in the next year or 2.
Is to leave conferences altogether and be like Notre Dame. I mean, it's possible.
If they want money, that is the best deal that they can go.
Yeah.
If they go to the SEC, I'm sorry, but the mighty dollar is going to go to the top teams, and then they get the scraps at the bottom. It's not like their entire revenue scheme is going to change when they go from one division to the other, because if they're a bottom team in the Big 12, they're going to be a bottom team in the SEC, bottom team in the ACC, bottom team in the Big 10. And when that happens, they aren't getting money like a OSU, Michigan. They're getting like...
Well, let's look at that, because I'm glad you mentioned that. The SEC generated $107 million more last year from TV and radio right deals alone compared to the Big 12 did in total revenue.
So what they need to do is the Big 12 have to come together as a whole, minus Texas if they have to, and start a Big 12 network. They've got to. They've got to put their own money in if they have to do it.
Yes, because that's where they're getting left in the dust with the other conferences.
The answer is not to have these teams leave. These teams don't understand. These pies get smaller the more teams get into them. And the SEC isn't going to bring just one team in. They're going to bring 2 or 3.
No.
And that means that pie is cut into even smaller pieces. And guess what? Alabama, I can promise you, I don't care how many teams you bring in, Alabama's got the same size pie.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Here's why Big 12 needs to expand. Because that's going to be their only hope for getting a TV rights deal and staying together. If they don't expand in 2022, they're going to disband and they're going to become...
I'd make a huge run at Notre Dame. Huge run. I understand they're in the ACC with a lot of their stuff, but I would make a huge run at them.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine Notre Dame coming into the Big 12.
If you could bring in Notre Dame and Cincinnati, something like that, that would be the best option. If you can't get in Notre Dame,
Houston's going to fall apart now that the Houston head coach has left to go to Texas.
That's the other one. Is you talk about what are the teams in this region that they could pick up? They're not going to steal an LSU away from the SEC. They would have to go with Houston or Rice, or SMU or...
Those are not viable options.
No, and I agree, they're not. SMU, if they got a lot better, if they got a lot more money...
I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, I've got to watch the Big 12 now that Rice is a part of this the conference.
But SMU would have to get a Gary Patterson type head coach for them to be able to enter into the Big 12. Otherwise, I don't see anything in the next 10 years that says SMU is a possibility. Houston would be the other big possibility outside of Cincinnati. And that's not a great option either. And I mean, Cincinnati is really they're not an awesome option, but look, they're the best option out there.
Well, right now, people are just picking up scraps.
There's nothing left.
All the big teams, all the teams that are worth having in your conference are already in a conference. Well,
and that's why
outside Notre Dame.
And SEC is saying we're not expanding. We don't have plans for expansion. If the Big 12 failed, you bet your ass that SEC would be right there picking up the tops of that heap.
I know, but you know what? I really don't. The Big 12's been around forever. I don't think it's going to fall apart. This kind of talk's been going on for years and years and years and years.
I just want to see the Southwest Conference come back.
So why don't we break this down? I think you're absolutely right on one point. I think things need to change.
Yes.
I think they need to change from possible dissolving of the conference to dividing it up.
Yes.
Divide up the conference, make it a little bit more hospitable for teams to be able to.
And we're looking at it, they're the only Power 5 conference that does not have two divisions.
So what they need to do is they need to put Texas in one division, OU in the other one.
Yeah, and the problem is they can't do it geographically. They would have to come up with some weird way of doing it. There are ways to do it, but they would have to expand. They'd have to get 2 more teams in. Otherwise, it's going to be really challenging for them to do it.
And I think, like I said before, I think if you put together a good deal, because the Longhorns understand that network's going to die the second the money runs out.
Yeah.
I think they had a 10-year contract, and that 10 years is coming up in the next couple of years.
Quick.
And there is no way ESPN's going to renew that deal. So
I mean, the Longhorn Network. I mean,
it's garbage.
Nothing to watch.
But and you're a Longhorn fan.
Yeah,
and it's garbage. How many times am I going to watch the 2005 championship thing? It's on every day.
You have to be a really hardcore Longhorn fan to want to watch that. But if you think about it, if it was the Big 12 network.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to watch.
There's a lot of stuff to watch. It would be great. You'd get to watch all the games on the weekend. I mean, it makes so much sense. The Longhorn Network just doesn't make sense.
And I don't care what anybody says about.
Once it's done, it's over.
I don't care what anybody says about how viable the Big 12 is when it comes to championships, all that. It is entertaining to watch.
Yes.
And everybody in the Big 12, they have very rabid fans, and those fans will watch the Big 12 network if they open it.
Yeah.
And the Big 12 is sort of like, the SEC in a way that the fans are everywhere.
Yeah.
They aren't just localized. They're not like the Pac-12 fans who are like, I graduate in 20 minutes, and then after that, I don't care anymore. How many times have you heard of rabid Stanford fans or rabid ASU fans or rabid Oregon? Well, maybe Oregon. Yeah, Oregon. But Washington, I mean, division is the only way to go, because if they dissolve it, we will have an issue in
It'll get
college
wild.
football.
Yeah, and next we got more football. Matt Wixon from the Dallas Morning News coming in to talk about the Frisco District, 13-5A, and playoff hopefuls.
I'm David Pumpkins.
No, I'm David Pumpkins.
We're so excited to invite you to our Stacy Furniture Anniversary Sale.
Save today on Stacy's outstanding selection, up to 50% off select items throughout the store.
Now's the time to buy that new bedroom, living room, or dining room suit. You can't beat these prices anywhere.
Name brands like Bernhard, Hooker, Universal, and Cheryl, all on sale today.
It's Stacy's Anniversary Sale. Only happens once a year.
Shop Stacy's today or visit us online at stacyfurniture.com.
Remember, when you're shopping at Stacy's, you're shopping with family.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
I've got Matt Wixon from the Dallas Morning News and Sports Day HS in studio talking.
David Pumpkin here.
13-5A, I know. And, I mean, another shutout for Lone Star this week. Now, they've got a big matchup this upcoming weekend, but we'll leave that for later. How are they doing this week in and week out? And because they can't have that much more talent than everybody else in the district, can they?
Well, I would say in a district of parity, the team that stands out is Lone Star.
Yeah.
So they do have more talent than the other teams. But I think they do it as a unit as well. I mean, they have a history of playing good defense at Lone Star. And I think this year they probably have as good a personnel as they've ever had. And that's what shows. They just can shut down people in this district.
Yeah, and Centennial's been scoring a lot of points.
Right.
And for them to go and put up 56 on them and not let them a field goal in the game is incredible to me. And they seem to be doing it week in out. Week when we went and watched the game, they allowed a touchdown, but it was late. They had all their starters out of the game. That seems to be the only way other teams right now can score on them.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, with Lone Star, they have shown all season they are going to stop the run. You cannot be one-dimensional and run again and be able to be successful. The only game they lost was to Denton Ryan, who is number 3 in the state rankings. Frisco Lone Star is also state ranked. And in that game, which came right down to the end, Lone Star shut down the run. They just have Spencer Sanders, this kid is going to Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
And it was a very close game. If you're going to beat Lone Star, there's a lot of things you need to do. But one of them is you're going to have to be very balanced. You're going to have to throw the ball for sure, which, looking ahead, Frisco Reedy can do.
Right.
But you're also going to have to be able to run the ball and keep them honest that way so that they can't, just put 6 backs in there.
Yeah, and they seem to be, I mean, we've seen teams try and run outside because it looks like on the interior, nobody's really running the ball on the interior, but their speed on the outside and their defensive backs have been able to really, keep teams from running even outside on them. In the passing game, we've seen teams make plays downfield.
Right.
But I think what you're saying is right. The consistency of the pass game is what's keeping other teams from being able to be successful and effective against this defense.
Yeah, and you get limited chances usually against Lone Star. I mean, you get behind early, and then the pressure's on you often to pass. But because Lone Star their offense can shrink the game if they want it to be because their running game is so good, but they can pass the ball as well. You feel pressure right away. We're down 7, we're down 14. How many times are we going to get the ball back? And when Lone Star gets those 3 and outs, which they get a lot of them, all of a sudden, their defense is getting tired, their offense, and it's just like a snowball effect for them. It has been that way in district.
And and Reedy just keeps winning. We saw that they won the district 13-5A championship in volleyball.
Right.
Can they repeat that in football? Because they won again, and 42-14 over Frisco. Now Frisco's had an extremely difficult year, and Reedy has a big game coming up.
Right.
But it seems like they're a much better team than we thought, and we keep saying that week in and week out. But they just keep proving that they're legit.
Right. Well, I think we have to bring up that they're the second-year varsity program because you just don't see this happen. But they're better than we thought they would be for sure. I mean, they're legitimate. They're a legitimate threat to Frisco Lone Star in this game. I'm sure they can use this as a chip on their shoulder thing again because I'm picking Lone Star to win, as everybody will pretty much, and they can take that as a knock against them. But basically, it's an endorsement of Lone Star. They're just a fantastic team. But Reedy, I mean, they have shown they can score points in a hurry. Josh Foskey, their quarterback, is a very legitimate top-notch high school quarterback. They've got good receivers. They got a good running back, Justin Gibson. They can do a lot of things to hang in a game with anyone, and that includes Lone Star, who they're playing this week. So I certainly give them a chance in this game, but I do believe that Lone Star, being the favorite, has got to make some mistakes probably to give them open the door a little bit.
Okay, now look, Reedy and Lone Star, they're pretty much set for a playoffs.
They're locked in.
Who that is not locked in has still got a good shot of getting into the playoffs?
So this week, those are the other games of definite interest. You got Heritage playing Wakeland, and Heritage can get in the playoffs if they beat Wakeland, and Heritage needs a win over Wakeland combined with a Centennial win over Independence, which is kind of the other big game this week. And then you've got Centennial, which is also 3-2 like Heritage. They are playing Independence this week. They get in if they win and Heritage beats Wakeland. So it's like, do me a favor, scratch
Yeah,
my back,
exactly.
whatever. And Wakeland still has a chance to get in. They can't clinch it this week, but with a win, they have a good chance.
Yeah, they have it seems like, starting the season off, we were talking about is Lone Star, and then right behind them was going to be Wakeland. And now Wakeland's fighting for the lives, it seems like.
Yeah. They had a very front-loaded schedule,
yes.
too. They played Lone Star and Reedy, at the start.
Yeah, so
and
it's
they
been
lost
a
that
challenge
tough
for
one to
them.
Centennial.
Yeah, but they've got to win out, it looks like, to get in.
I think so. I mean, there's a very slight chance they could get in with a 3-4 district record, but most likely they need to win out, which they certainly can do, because these two games are winnable for them if you look at it, on paper. I still think Wakeland has a very good team. Dylan Cadwallader, their quarterback, is a really good quarterback. And so they're a scary team, and I think they could win 2 games and get in the playoffs.
And they just beat Independence, so that's one step in the right direction. And this district, you see the parity in the middle. Frisco really struggling. We've talked about this before, but it hasn't gotten better for them,
right?
Unfortunately. What do you see from their play so far this year that tells you they've still got some hope?
Well, they're young, and so, if you think that, yes, this season is kind of lost other than pride. This week they're playing Liberty, who is also winless in district, does have 1 win, but that's kind of a big game for both of them to get that winning feeling out there. But if you're building for next year, they do have some good young players. They knew this was going to be a bit of a transition year, a rebuilding year, and so if you can kind of picture it that way for the players, you can get them excited about, hey, we're building for something. It's tough for the seniors, but we're building for something for next season.
Yeah, and then Liberty, another team that's really struggled this year.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we really saw Liberty struggling as much as they have. I think Frisco was kind of expected, talking about transition year. What's going on for Liberty right now?
Well, I think it's a little bit similar too. That their numbers, their talent is probably a little bit down this year comparably, and they were close to making the playoffs last year. I believe they were 4-6 last year, and we knew that they would probably have a tough time getting to that level this year. But they've been close in a lot of games, and I think they're another good example of the parity in this district, because they've had a few games that could have gone either way. Maybe not against Lone Star, as have been most of the district games for Lone Star, but for the most part, they've hung in games in the third quarter. They've been in it in the third quarter, and then kind of gets away from them. But so they have things that are hopeful too, and I think this is a fun week for Frisco and Liberty, because they get to square up against a team that I think they're real comparable.
Right.
So both of them can go into that game thinking, hey, we got a chance to win this.
Well, and the other matchup is obviously Lone Star and Reedy.
Right.
And one of the biggest matchups of the year, and I guess we'll talk about it here in a minute. It would be Thursday.
Right.
We'll talk about that matchup and just how big that is for the season for both of those teams. But looking at the rankings right now for the area, Frisco Lone Star being ranked number 2, sandwiched between Denton Ryan and Highland Park, who are expected to be teams that can be in that championship game.
Right.
Is Lone Star a championship contender right now?
Well, here's the big thing too with that. Denton Ryan, number 1 in our morning news area poll, and Highland Park, number 3. They will both be in the 5A Division 1 draw, the bigger schools.
That's right.
Lone Star and Reedy are both going in Division 2. So that's definitely an advantage for them. Not to say that there aren't very good teams in 5A Division 2. One of them being, I believe, Aledo, which is number 1.
Yeah,
and they're
traditionally a power in the
definitely.
Division,
so that's going to. But I think Lone Star, the way they're built, they certainly have a chance for a deep run. And I think Reedy, they're built a little differently, but they have the talent to make a nice run. It comes down to
keep proving
matchups.
Yeah.
A lot of times, how you can do it. Yeah, it's hard to bet against Reedy at this point. They overcome every challenge.
Yeah, it feels like the Patriots right now. Going into the season, you're like, I don't know how good their defense is going to be, and their offense is lost. That some of their star players, I don't know, but then. They just keep winning, and you're like, well, now I just can't bet against them.
That's what it comes down to, right? The stats maybe aren't this great, or things don't look perfect, but they keep getting W's.
Yeah.
So that's
that's the most important thing. And when we get in, that's the end of our show for today. But we'll have Matt Wixon back in on Thursday to talk about this weekend's huge matchups, and then. Look, playoffs are on the horizon, and it's going to be really exciting to see what happens with both Reedy and Lone Star, and then whoever else sneaks in.
Right.
That's going to be exciting to see after this weekend. We may have a little bit more clarity.
I hope so.
Until next week, this has been Off the Bench.